Welcome back to the Physio Bros. Today we are going to be going for a run and showing you a few quick things on running technique. Let's go! So cadence is the amount our feet hit the ground as we run per minute. So what that means is every time your foot strikes the ground, we count that across the full minute and that equals our cadence. Now a normal range for cadence is between 165 to 180. It's something that is worth being aware of because by looking at some people who have had injuries with running, we know cadence can be really important to manage to help reduce re-injury and help manage load coming up through our joints. Now, something that we see with slower cadence is people start having this vertical oscillation. They become less efficient as they run. They lose that push forward as they go. So by adjusting your cadence and increasing the speed of your cadence by about 5 to 10% can be a great way for increasing and improving the load coming up through our joints, but also making you a more efficient runner. In terms of the range that we're looking for, it's between that 165 to 180. But if you're someone that is running, you're injury free and you don't have any issues at the moment, then this is something that you have adapted over time to be conditioned for this cadence rate, and therefore you don't really need to change it. One of the things that can be really helpful is using something like a metro timer or music to help get you into the cadence rate that you want. And this is going to help you time your run and your cadence as you go.
So trunk positioning, it's really simple. If you're leaning too far back, this is going to kill your forward momentum and basically make you a really less efficient runner. So what we encourage as always is the slight lean forward positioning when you're running, because this is going to encourage forward momentum and improve your efficiency. The caveat to this though is if you bend too far forwards and you're really leaning far forwards and your legs have to catch up on the ground and they really slam into the ground, this leads to a concept called overstriding. And overstriding will increase ground reaction forces up through your legs. What it is, it's just thinking about the position of your foot placement on the ground relative to your body as you're running. So if your foot is really far out in front of you, when you hit the ground, then this is going to be your overstriding. It's going to thud into the ground, increases those forces. If your foot lands underneath your body as you're running, this is the perfect spot where we want you to be. Now, from this, you've got to think about your actual foot placement, and everyone harps on about everyone should be a midfoot striker, avoid heel strike because it's going to lead to injury. And this isn't actually true. There's no evidence to support a particular foot pattern. So if you're running comfortably, I wouldn't recommend changing a thing at the moment. What we tell our runners though, is that if you do have a midfoot strike, it's nothing to do with the actual foot positioning, but it's usually going to lead to a less overstriding pattern because your foot will land underneath you. But give these tips a go and see how they work. So the next tip we're going to talk about is your hip positioning, and in particular something called contralateral hip drop. What that means is basically when your stance leg hits the ground, your opposite hip drops to the ground. So it's dropping, you've got those swaying hips. So a good cue as you're running to stop your hips kind of popping out to the side like this is trying to tuck them up in so that they feel a bit more straight underneath. A good adjunct to this is trying to do some glute med strengthening, so some of that side strengthening, which we'll pop a bit up here that you can follow along with.
There are two really important things to address with your arm swing. The first is that your arms shouldn't be crossing your sternum or your midline. To correct this, what you want to do is try and point your thumbs up towards each shoulder as you run. This is going to maintain a more square running style, but also maintain your forward momentum. The second component is as you're running, you should be trying to drive your elbows backwards. This is going to give you a very similar effect where it's going to help maintain that forward momentum and also improve your running efficiency as you run.
Step width is the distance between your feet as they hit the ground. So the best way of thinking of this is imagine there's a line drawn on the floor in between your feet, and this is a great way to think about your step width. If your feet are crossing over or crossing over the line, then you've got a narrow step width. If your feet are wider on either side of the line, then you've likely got a wider step width. Now, when returning from injury, a great cue to think of is potentially to widen your step width. This is really good for returning from like ITB syndrome because it can reduce some of the load coming up through your legs, and it can just be a great cue to try. Now, one thing to note though is when you're at faster speeds, you'll naturally have a narrower step width. So we're talking here about just your general day-to-day speeds when you're running. So So give this cue, widening your step width, a try. That's it, guys. So when you think about running technique, remember that there's lots of natural, healthy variety across lots of different people when it comes to running techniques, and that's okay. If you're running uninjured, then that's a good thing, and just keep doing what you're doing. But if you're not, try these few tweaks to help improve your running technique.
So guys, remember to like, comment anything below if you have any questions, and remember to subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Yoo-hoo!